Welcome back, baby, to the Bionicle Inspiration series. We're reviewing Bionicle MOCs to inspire you. And today it's a fan-submitted MOCs episode. But here on BIS, we're a little bit like the Paraka. We're a good old group of buddies coming together to do some fun Bionicle stuff, and maybe even sing a rap or two. Can confirm, I won't sing a rap this episode. But you are going to be talking about some fan-submitted MOCs today, because it's episode 160, and every 10th episode, I like to do a fan-submitted MOCs episode. And of course, if you want to see your own MOCs on the show, you can submit them to the email you're currently seeing on your screen. Submit as many pictures as you want, and put as much of sort of information that you want to put in the email as you want. There's no real limit there, or maximum or minimum. Put what you think's necessary. Send it to me. I'll add it to the list, and one day it'll appear on the show. But do know that I have a lot of submissions to work through, so I'll do my best, but your patience is key. Let's begin. The first fan-submitted MOCs we've got today is by Raven and is called Crypto the Void Walker 2020 edition. So this guy's pretty cool. Got a really awesome, sick-looking custom mask here. One that is, it appears to be sort of a combination of a Miru, I think slight elements of Kupaka's sort of scope eye, and then an upside-down Gully's mask, which is awesome. That alone is really cool. It's got a little bit of a sort of subtle paint job towards the top there. And speaking of paint job, some of the black bits on the armor of this MOC also have a cool paint job, little sort of orange glowing kind of highlights there, which looks really cool. So I love the little custom editions like that, of just having a little pop of little additional things that does some stuff there. I mean, the mask is very heavily customized, of course, but the paint job on the mask and the paint on the armor, that's some really subtle sort of illegal stuff. Oh, not illegal, sorry, non-purist stuff, which I think can do a lot to a MOC. Just little subtle bits of paint, whether you commission someone to do that or you do it yourself is completely up to you, of course, but little subtle stuff like that can really make the MOC pop even more. And speaking of subtle stuff that makes the MOC pop, I love the asymmetry on this MOC. The fact that he has this black hand here, or black arm really, that does have these little paint job additions to it. So it could be that it's infected, or it's got some sort of cool mechanical thing, because at some points he does have a gun arm as well, which looks really, really cool. And the fact that it sort of shoots those orange studs there really kind of fits in with the paint job. It's very well done. It looks very nice. I like that. I love the asymmetry here. It really sort of starts to tell a story. Even though you can't quite fill in all the details, there's a sense of intrigue to it. And I always like putting little intrigue points, I guess, for lack of a better term, on a MOC, doing stuff like that. Really, really finding stuff that is just different, unique. You kind of look at the character and go like, ooh, what's your story? How did that happen? That sort of stuff can always make a MOC pop. This is a great example of that. I also love on the other arm here, the use of the skull spider headpiece there in dark blue. As a bit of shoulder armor. That's very nice, especially because those pieces can kind of, just the way they naturally work, how they just kind of slot onto the mask. You could easily have them slot onto any sort of connection that's sort of similar sort of 2 brick wide length. And like it's being done here, sort of being slotted onto the top of the arm there to kind of give it a very nice sort of looking shoulder design. It's cool because it kind of doesn't necessarily limit posability too much. It kind of can flow with the arm. It might pop up depending how you move it. It could pop off, of course, but it looks really, really cool. It flows very nicely, and you can still get a good amount of posability with it, which is cool. So that's a beautiful little addition there that doesn't hinder posability. And I know that's always very important to some people, so that's something to consider. I also love the kind of waistcoat design on this MOC here, how he's used those system clip pieces to kind of form this sort of posable leather or cloth of some kind, and then combining it with some Skrull armor pieces and some of those Chima feather pieces too, to get this really nice sort of tunic look on this MOC. It's very effective. A lot of different pieces being used there, and to great avail too. It really works quite well. And yeah, honestly, overall, it's a beautiful MOC. Great playing around with colors, great playing around with asymmetry, and some really nice techniques, and some really nice weapons on it too. So nicely done there, Raven. On to the next MOC. It's by Makuta Nui MOCs, and it's called Takua Mask of Light Movie. So of course, if you're an avid Bionicle fan, I'm sure you've seen the 4 Bionicle movies. There's Mask of Light movie, there's Web of Shadows, there's Legends of Metro Nui, I believe it's called, and the, is it Legends Reborn? Gosh, it's been so long since I've watched those movies, I've almost forgotten the names, but there's a few of them, and so if you're a rising Bionicle fan, you haven't quite seen it all yet, do a bit of research, have a look into those movies, because, they were good fun. They were very good fun. when they were watching them when they came out. It was very enjoyable. And if you've watched enough of the episodes of the Bionicle Inspiration series, or you've just had a keen eye on the community, you'll know that that's kind of a thing that people like to do, is to build the characters that were in those movies to better fit the way they looked in the movies. Because they still very effectively matched what the toys were, but they did have a slight aesthetic sort of difference for a fair few of them, especially like the Rakshi and stuff. They looked a fair bit different to how the toys did. But it was a really welcome addition, and it was just a sort of nice little aesthetic change just to better fit the animation, of course. So it's really cool to see Takua being remade here to better represent how he looked in the movie. I love all the little system details on the torso there. I think that's very accurate to the source material, especially that sort of slope grill piece there on the middle of the torso, and the heart light as well. Very nice additions there that do a lot for the mock. And overall, a lot of the sort of system greebles and details there on the torso is, I think, where this mock shines and very much represents and matches the source material there. It's really cool to see. It's also interesting to note some of the illegal techniques on this mock. You take a look at the good old arms, and we can see that he's used some of those very, very small Hero Factory bone pieces there in conjunction with some Hordiconnects. And it looks like he's cut some flex tube or something to connect those together. So obviously the cutting of the flex tube, you can debate whether or not that's illegal, because some sets actually ask you to do it, but you know, the whole definition of illegal techniques is a confusing one. But I have done a fair few episodes and videos and things talking about that. So if you do want to dive into that, you can well, you can probably expect some more videos on that in future, and you can take a look back at some of my other stuff, and I can, in those videos, talk a little bit more about what it is to be an illegal technique. But it works. It works really well, and Matoran builds can be a little bit difficult. I always find that. Yes, there is a lot of skill that it takes to build very large scale mocks, but sometimes when you build larger scale stuff, you can cheat in interesting ways, or you can use sort of larger pieces to cover up more surface area, and you've got a lot of surface area to pack in details. If you've got the pieces, it's it's an easier thing to do. Yes, it can be more difficult if you don't have the parts, but packing in detail into a smaller space where you're limited to very few pieces, that to me is pretty difficult. It's like this torso here. It's packing in a fair few amount of pieces there into a very small space. If this was a much larger space, it's a bit easier to do that, right? So I love that he has used these illegal techniques here, because it's a great way to get a lot of posability into this small Matoran space here. I think it's a welcome addition that works well. Something else I like too, just kind of on that, I think building little sort of detailed Matoran mocks like this, little small stuff that you can pack in detail for, is a great way to practice, because it's something that doesn't require a huge amount of parts, so you can just kind of use what you've got lying around. And then you can really play around with different things. So maybe you're like, a lot of people have been saying in their critique that I'm not too good with textures. So maybe I'll build a few Matoran mocks or a few little tiny Rahi or something, and really pay attention to textures as I'm doing it. So that way you don't have to take apart other stuff you've got, or, really break the bank using, heaps of money in pieces and time and parts and stuff. No, you can just build something small scale and really have it be like a test, just to see, okay, I really want to play around with some smoother textures now. Let's put a little smooth Matoran like this. Something like that. That could be something to play around with and something to think about, because it's a bit easier to do, and it's just a great way to experiment and play, because that's the only way you're going to get better, really, is just to keep experimenting, keep learning, keep playing, and just keep trying until you get better. Practice makes perfect, as they say. That's certainly something I've found with a lot of my uni work at the moment, is a lot of the sort of Photoshop work that I've been doing and photography and things like that. I remember like thinking back to like 2 or 3 years ago when I started, and I was like, man, some of these are good, some of these are just awful. Like I'm really trying here, but it's just not looking good. And then kind of the other day I looked at it and I was like, you know what? Like I'm actually really proud of this now. And like, yes, I've still got a long way to go, and I'm not as good as, Billy Bob Joe down the street or whatever, but like I'm way better than I used to be. And it's not like I necessarily did anything to change that. I just kept practicing. I just kept working on it. And now, like, 2-3 years later, I'm like, oh, it's happened. I'm looking back on it now, and look at me go, So that's always something I definitely recommend, just for a little confidence boost. Take a look at some of your older stuff and go like, man, I build way better than that now. Go me, And yes, you might look at it and you're like, man, I'm not Jockson. I can't build like super, super well and be crazy cool with, nice part usages and whatever. But who says you need to be Jockson? You can be the brand new guy who's just amazing and even better than those amazing people, or you form your own unique style and you're just different to others, and that's what makes you shine, So have a think about it, practice makes perfect. Keep playing, define your own unique style, and you'll be the builder you want to be. as I look up to the stars and dream about her tomorrow. Yeah, see what happens. I got on a tangent there, but there's your Takua. Really nice mark. Lots of detail in a small space. Pretty cool. Next one here. This is Vex Legacy version by Jackal World. This one's pretty cool. When I first saw this mask, I thought it was sort of, maybe like a custom one or something, 3D printed or something like that. But I read the Instagram post, which you can read the Instagram post too if you take a look at the links in the description. All the links to the mocks in today's episode are there. Of course, if the emails didn't have any message or regards about their social media, it just says emailed submission. But by all means, if your submission has that, I'll be sure to put it in the description. So be sure to check out some of the other stuff these guys have done. But in his Instagram post, he was saying that this mask was a typical Strack mask. Good old Strack mask. Great character. And he's sanded it down. He's cut it up a little bit. He's added some putty and put lots of paint onto your typical Strack mask there. So that's what he's done to give it this more sort of pure white, sort of more defined, smoother look to it, which, hey, if that's the route you want to go, you want to heavily customize some pieces, really cut them up and pretty them up and paint them up and all that sort of stuff, knock yourself out. There's nothing wrong with doing that at all. Some builders, they might not like that, and hey, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, of course. If that's not something you want to do, you don't have to. I ain't forcing nobody here, but if you want to play around, you want to do that, why not? If it makes you happy, if it puts a smile on your face, do it. I dare you. So there you go. This is a really, really cool mock here. I love all this sort of back detail stuff on the back here. These tubes, these almost like jet engines, or not even jet engines, just kind of like plasma conduits or some sort of power device or something. It looks rad. It looks really, really cool. It really gives this mock a unique sort of weapon, or at least a unique sort of just design, and that's cool. I always like I always like seeing mocks that give something like that. They've got a really fun detail somewhere on it that's just unique. It's just different. It's not something you see every day. It really sets it apart from the others. Makes it look really cool. I also love too, you can kind of look on the waist here. He's got these two little sort of needle things almost. One's got this trans yellow and one's got this trans red little cylinder piece on there, and those sort of sword pieces on the edges there. They kind of look a bit like like an injection, like a flu jab or something like that. It's interesting. I don't know what it is, but it looks cool. And I like the idea of just having like a utility belt or something where you're kind of storing, little devices or med packs or, enhancements or something on you. It's a cool idea. Very, very cool indeed. Fun little detail, of course. Another fun detail, how he's attached these minifigure hand pieces there onto that typical prefab white armor piece on the arm. An easy thing you yourself could do. They just naturally fit in there, and it's a fun little way of kind of making that pop a little more, introducing another color to it. I love too how the mask flips up here. That's a cool little fun addition to this custom mask. And yeah, overall, just a really nice looking mock here with some fun little details on it, for sure. It's a really nice work there, Jackal World. Next one. This is by Paradox Minecraft and more, and this is called Demitrious. So methinks that I have found Demitrious like a jewel, mine own and not mine own. So, this is cool. I really like the little power effect that he's got here on his arm, kind of coming out of his hands there rather, not his arm. Kind of looks like, he's sort of manipulating magics or some elemental power that he's got. Looks pretty cool indeed. It's always a fun thing to do, Have a think about what some of your mocks do in terms of how they fight. That's something that I've spoken to a lot with Brendan about, Mr. Shadowgear6335. He sort of said that in the past, whenever he's built mocks, I'm sure he still does it today, he'll really factor in what sort of combat moves they do or how they would fight, the abilities that they would have, that sort of thing. And that can often influence how the mock looks. The sort of weapons or abilities that it could have could very much be implemented into the design itself. I think he was saying once that one of his characters, like Bone Chill, did this sort of interesting lattice shield thing around him, and it kind of tied in with some concepts that he had with the mock that I don't think he's actually implemented into it yet, but kind of this idea that it sort of split apart and out came this like fiery demon or something like that. And yeah, I don't know, it all kind of worked together. I think I'm mixing up a couple of the ideas that he had together and forming it into one, but you know what I mean? Like the idea of even as simple as it is with this mock here, it goes, oh yeah, he's got cool manipulating powers with magic and he constantly has, blue swirling magic flowing around his arms. Well, then put it on the mock by all means. Or, just kind of let your imagination run wild there. Take influence from other characters that do cool power effects and epic moves and things in comics or TV shows or movies, and find ways to put that into the mock. And I think this is a cool example of that, just kind of playing around with some trans purple and purple pieces and making it look like this cool wisp of magic and power or whatever as he's casting some sort of attack. It's really cool. It's really cool. A unique idea for sure. And something else I like about this mock too is the head design. Using a few slope pieces and things, it kind of reminds me of Optimus Prime, a few different Transformers, because it kind of has that very, very similar sort of sloped mouth effect and that sort of one eye there that is very distinct and very unique for sure. So that's just something to consider if you're a Transformers fan. Take a look at some of the head designs on some Transformers. Maybe they could influence the head design for one of your mocks in the near but distant future. Maybe. But that works really well here on this mock, that's for sure. And I also like the torso design here, how the waist there is just that sort of longer beam, 2 hand connectors, and then he's put some of those smaller arm pieces that came on some Matoran and the Toa Metru and stuff like that. And he has allowed that to kind of form the basis of the torso here. And putting a mask over the top of it just to kind of pad it out a little bit, give it a bit of armor. It's also really clever, really creative, and a good way to kind of really cover up that blank area there. It's pretty cool for sure. Some nice stuff going on here. And man, you got me saying, stay, that thou kill me, sweet Demitrious. But I charge thee hence. Do not hold me thus. Let's move on to the next mock. This one's by Thomas Wiederer and is called Red Mech. Well, I'm calling it Red Mech because it didn't actually have a name in the email, but it looks super rad. It looks super, super cool. I was immediately struck by the awesome kind of tentacles on this mock. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Doc Ock, having tentacle apparatuses coming out of the back there, forming some sort of weapon or just additional limbs or something like that. Really cool. The fact that they have these weapons on the edges of it too. It's awesome how well they flow in with system pieces. One of these blades here is from Natalie Breeze from the Breakout Wave, I believe. Yes, I believe it was. And those red swords, they've also come on a variety of Ninjago and Hero Factory sets and things like that. And they flow surprisingly well with the textures and general shapes and color schemes of this mock. So it's always interesting kind of really paying attention to specific system or Bionicle pieces and seeing how well can they flow in with other pieces. Do they have similar textures, similar shapes or sizes or designs or something? How well can it all blend together? So always something to pay attention to and have a think about. Also taking a look at one of the arms here. It's kind of the one that's in the background of the image there. It kind of has this almost little arrow shape to it, and it's because it's mainly using system pieces there. Now that's cool. I like that. Building a more primarily system arm design here, and then actually taking advantage of that and using some smaller plates and things, and making it look like, he's got an intricate sort of pattern or design on his arm, like a tattoo or a sort of, just a design that he's got on his arm. It's a really nice way of utilizing some system pieces there to get more detailed designs in and kind of play around with decals or color schemes, all that sort of stuff. That's really cool. It's really cool indeed. Another thing too, not related to the mock, but I love this red popping background. It really is striking. It really grabs me. It's nice. But what's so nice about it is that it's not detracting from the mock in any way. Typically we say like, get a neutral background, like a white background or a gray or a black or something. And the main reason it's that is because it doesn't interfere with the mock. If you're photographing your mock, you want to make sure that the background behind it isn't distracting from the mock in front of it, because otherwise it just makes it harder to look at. You want it to just be easy to look at. You can really take in all the details. But here with this red, it actually just pops. It doesn't really detract from the mock too much. The red is a bit darker than the actual red pieces that are being used. It's not too bad. There's some areas there's a little bit of overlap here, but still it's nice. There's something nice about that. So that's also something to think about. When you're photographing a mock, could you do that? Instead of just your white or your grey background or whatever, play around with some greens or purples or reds like this. Who knows? Maybe it'll work. Try it out. And if it is a little bit distracting, then try something else, of course. But hey, nothing wrong with it, because it can make the mock pop. It can produce or provide a different atmosphere or look or feel. Depends what you're after. It's cool. Reminds me of an older mock from Mitch Henry where he had a black background and the floor was grey and it kind of looked like the moon, and the mock he built was an astronaut and stuff. Can the background in some way actually enhance the mock? Really make it pop, really make, really drive home a point you're trying to communicate with it. Something to think about. One other thing I like about this more primarily system submission here is the fact that he's actually got a little minifigure inside him. So it's this little mech. That's really, really cool. I love that a lot. And something you could consider too. I'm sure you got a minifigure or two lying around, even if you mainly just collect Bionicle. Can you make your Bionicle a mech that a minifigure drives? Great idea. Indubitably. Next one. This is by Meme Midget, and it's called Takua, Master of the Skies. So I like the fact that he's sort of sitting on this stand here, this larger black kind of Technic beams here that sort of support him like this so that he kind of can appear that he's sort of floating in the air and flying. It's a great idea. Do you want to yourself build a stand? And not like the stands in JoJo Bizarre Anime Adventure TV show that I don't watch. A stand like one that supports the mock. You know? Something like that. Something like that indeed. Just to really give it the pose that you have in your head, or to make it look like it's flying, or any sort of interesting effect like that. Could be something worth looking into, whether it's built with Technic pieces like this, or whether it's built not built at all with any Lego pieces, and you buy an action figure stand that holds up certain action figures. Those things do exist, and they can be translucent as well, so it doesn't detract from the mock in any way. Something to consider. I also like the wing design on this mock here, using these silver blade pieces. You know, your swords, your blades, all those sorts of things are perfect for wing designs because it can very effectively look like one, as we see here. And I don't mind that there's silver on this mock, you know, sure, if you've got some green blades, which I don't really think many of those exist, might have fit with the color scheme a little better, but I also kind of like the idea that he's built this sort of silver winged apparatus, and it's like a backpack that he's put on his back there as this sort of almost like a jetpack, but with wings, or, like Falcon in the MCU and the Marvel Cinematic Universe there, how he's got that pack, that suit that lets him fly. This could be something very similar, of course, so that's pretty cool. And also the color scheme's nice too, all these different shades of green, and it's nice to note how the translight green there flows very well with lime and the other shades of green. Those blend together well. Some cool things about color scheme there, and a few other cool things here you could have a nice think about for your mocks. Nice work, Meme Midget. Next one. This is by Brendan Fung and is called The Forgotten. So what I like so much about this is it's this weird, interesting, abstract, crazy design that's this giant toothy maw, and it's just got these individual kind of tentacle legs with spikes on them sticking out. What an abstract but beautiful design. It's so unique. It's not really like anything you see on Earth. It's very kind of Lovecraftian, very sort of alien in nature. It's just different. It's almost, it's like something you'd see out of science fiction or a fantasy novel or something. It's cool. It's different. It's out there. And I love it when mocks do that, when mocks play around with the abstract and the weird and the confusing and the different and the new, and it's awesome. It's really, really awesome. So that's something you could consider yourself, Yes, you could build this sort of interesting humanoid, human-like character. Nothing wrong with that, of course, if you want to, by all means. But why not do something like this big, crazy, giant mock with heaps of tentacles, heaps of teeth and spikes everywhere, and it's literally just a giant mouth, essentially. That's really cool, really different, really unique. Always cool to see stuff sort of exploring those boundaries there. That's very nice. If you take a look at the mock, you can kind of notice that essentially this seems to be built around a sort of larger octagon. Maybe there's more than 8 sides, but essentially it all seems to be kind of built off a sort of larger geometric shape. That sort of seems to be forming the basis where all the legs are being spawned out of. That's where the top of the mock, all of those other toothy pieces and Hero Factory torsos and things, they're kind of coming off of that. It's pretty cool. I think it's not a hexagon, an octagon. Honestly, I'm not going to count it right now because I'm recording and I got to do the other talkie, not the mathy. Anyway, that's a great idea too. Can you build a nice geometric shape and then build off of that? Can you get a really good starting base, a nice frame like this, building that larger octagon, hexagon, heptagon, dodecahedron, whatever, and then branching off with tentacles, branching off with teeth, all that sort of stuff. What can you do as a nice sort of starter or base for a mock that you can then branch off with? Is it a geometric shape? Is it just, you're just kind of playing around with pieces of this weird sort of looking shape, but there's connection points on it. You can branch off of that. Can you do stuff like that? Can it work in your favor there? Something to think about. Something that looks really good and forms a very unique and different Lovecraftian sort of mock. Very cool indeed. And next one here, this is Cyberpunk by Lucas. This is cool. I like the name Cyberpunk for a mock too, especially because it does have sort of subtle cyberpunk things to it, like this interesting trans neon green sort of shield here. Looks cool, looks very different, sort of sci-fi in nature. This interesting sort of apparatus on the mask too. Looks like he's sort of enhanced himself in some fashion. It's unique, it's different, it's cool. And I like that idea too, finding ways of building your kind of basic humanoid character, but then finding different ways that you can make it more unique. Give it an interesting shield, give it an interesting apparatus on the mask. Just little stuff that actually, advances it in different directions and really makes it pop, really makes it unique and cool. That's nice to see. I like that a lot. So some fun stuff you're playing with there, Lucas. Nice work indeed. I don't actually know what that shield piece there on the arm is. I want to say it's from like a Ninjago spinner or something, but honestly, I don't know. There's things I know about Lego, but I don't know everything about it. And that's one of the things I don't know. Regardless though, some cool stuff on this one here, Lucas. Good job. Let us move on to the next mock. We got a fair few today, guys. We got a fair few today. This one is called Vengeance, and it's by Dust and Starlight. Oh, it's a good name. I like that. Dust and Starlight. Anyway, Vengeance. Also a cool name for a very unique and different mock. Very cool. Indeed. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Michael Bay Bayverse Ravage. Kind of having that very similar sort of mono-eye look to it, and this almost sort of hound dog-like look to it as well. There's sort of similar elements here for sure. But yes, love that head design. And something else that I like about it too is the Nuparu shield pieces here that are sort of on the neck and also slightly on the back and kind of closer to one of the legs too. In the post on Instagram here, he was saying that this is kind of inspired by like a frill neck lizard. So essentially those Hordika shield pieces kind of frill out, pop out, and they kind of sort of like an intimidation tactic like you would see with a frill neck lizard in the real world, which is awesome. A really different way of doing it too. Like it's visually very different to a frill neck lizard. The frills aren't coming out of the neck. They're more sort of in other areas of the body. So a great way of taking that concept and advancing it and applying it to something different here. But I also like the fact that you've used those those Nuparu Mari shield pieces there on this mock, because it also kind of looks like armor. It also just sort of looks like some sort of, armor. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm just saying the same example twice. It looks like some sort of additional armor that kind of, protects him, but also can act as a larger shield when it kind of pops out. So it can protect it from the side, but also the front. It's a really cool idea. So a great way of playing with those pieces there. I also like too the multiple limbs, how some of them seem to be a bit thinner than others. They're not all sort of the exact same rough look to them. It very much looks like it's sort of, I don't know, there's something almost artificial about that, but also very natural about that too. Like that middle leg there kind of has a lot of those silver washer pieces on it. It almost looks like it could be a mechanical leg or something, like it's a, they've taken this pre-existing animal and modified it in some way, giving it armor, giving it an additional leg or limb. That's kind of cool, but it also just has this really beautiful alien look to it. How it has 6 legs like this. That's pretty cool. So yeah, some really nice stuff on there. There's a beautiful hound-like look to it, and some really clever concepts you're playing with here too. That's very nice. Last mock now. Last fan-submitted mock. And this one is a good one. A good one indeed. This is by Cody Avery, and it's called Golden Ancient. So what I love so much about this is the prop that he's got. He's got this sick key. I don't know what the key's for. I don't know what the key is, but it's cool. It's like we were talking about before. It's a nice little intrigue point. It makes you think about a story. It makes you think, ooh, what if this is the case? Or what if this is the case with it? I wonder what this could be. It's making you think about it, which is great. And also the key is just well designed too, using some of the official Lego key pieces and buffing it out a little bit so it fits with the scale of Bionicle. Very nice. I love it. I love the idea of giving mocks props, whether that's a weapon, whether that's, magic effects like we saw before, or whether it's just a key like this, some sort of inanimate object that they've picked up. I mean, some props can be so synonymous with characters and so iconic. You look at like Thor's hammer, and yes, that's more of a weapon than a prop per se, but you look at the skull in Hamlet and stuff like that. That's such an iconic prop. And it can do so much for characters, It's like when I have done acting and stuff, when you have a prop, it can really inform the way that the character acts and behaves. It can really become iconic to the character and symbolize things. It's like Loki and the Tesseract in Avengers and stuff like that. It's an object that can be a little bit more synonymous with them and kind of can imply aspects of character, The Tesseract is an object that allows you to teleport around places, stuff like that. And, Loki is this sort of tricky character that always gets away, that sort of thing. So, can the key be, or whatever prop they're holding, can it be a signifier for elements of the character? It's a great idea. So have a think about props next time you're building a mock. It's an awesome concept that this mock encapsulates here. I love too the name Golden Ancient, the fact this is a sort of more ancient, older mock, and the fact that he's used a lot of gears, and on the back, this sort of ornate wheel piece. They're older looking parts. It kind of implies a sense of, age to the mock. It's great. It definitely looks like it is older, and that's simply just through the idea of using older looking pieces like this. Really cool. I love too the little chrome highlights coming out of the arms here. This beautiful effect of this kind of line that's coming out of the arms there. It's just cool to see. I like that. The hunched look on this mock too, using that big gold torso piece. That's great. Honestly, there's just a lot to love about this mock. A lot of character in this, and some really cool concepts being explored too. Anyway, that's it for this episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series. At the start of it, I talked to you about how you could submit mocks, and so be sure to check the start of that again. If you've got any questions about that, you can always find pretty much all the information I've already said, so be sure to check that out. Additionally, like I said as well, links in the description to the mocks you saw in today's episode. Check those out, and you can also check out my own links in the description, including something brand new. What is it? If you like Ben Cossy that much, and you want me on your shirt, you can now. It's not me physically, it's the mask, it's my logo. You can get that on a shirt on Redbubble right now. There'll be a link in the description below for that. I'll remember to add that in the description, that's right. But it's there. If you really want to buy one, you can. It's there. Enjoy. It's all for you. So go and check that out. But that's it for today's episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series. Hopefully you enjoyed these fan-submitted mocks. Episode 170 will be the next fan-submitted mocks episode, but of course, more submissions will pop up in every other episode of BIS. So stay tuned and look forward to that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.